the coldest night in Briar Hollow. It began with a scream, short, sharp, cut off in the middle, like someone had clamped a hand over a mouth. It came from the woods on the edge of Briar Hollow, a place the locals swore you didn't walk after dark. By morning, the first snow of the season had covered the ground, but it couldn't hide what was there. A man, face down in the frost, coat half torn from his shoulders, gloves missing, hands frozen mid-reach, as if grasping for something just out of reach. The sheriff tried to call it an accident. Maybe he slipped, maybe he wandered too far after a drink. But the people in Briar Hollow knew better. They knew about the missing watch, the missing boots, the way his footprints in the snow just stopped, like he'd been lifted into the air. His name was Thomas Gray, 42, a carpenter, quiet to the point of suspicion. Never married, lived alone in a cabin he built himself. The strangest thing, nobody remembered seeing him. For almost a week before that night, the coroner found something worse. Thomas had frost in his lungs, proof he'd been alive for hours in the cold, but also bruising around his neck, finger-shaped. It wasn't the cold that killed him. Someone else had. Investigators started small, neighbors, co-workers, anyone who'd seen him. But there was almost nothing. No phone calls, no receipts, no visitors. Until one name surfaced, a woman no one in town had ever met. Abigail Cross. She claimed she'd been in contact with Thomas for months, about something she wouldn't explain, something he'd promised her. When asked what, she simply said, "A debt he owed me." A week later, she was gone. The sheriff's office tried to trace her. Every lead turned cold. No address, no ID, no record of her existence. Then, the cabin fire. 3 days after Abigail vanished, Thomas's home went up in flames. The blaze was so hot, the roof collapsed within minutes. Fire crews found no body, but in the ashes of the floorboards, they uncovered a warped metal lockbox, still sealed. Inside were stacks of old photographs, black and white, dating back almost 100 years. And in every one, there was Thomas. Different clothes, different settings, but the same face, the same eyes. Some showed him standing in city streets that no longer existed. Others in military uniforms from wars long before he was born. The sheriff brought in state investigators, expecting a hoax. The photos were sent to forensic analysts, who couldn't explain them. No digital alteration, no forgery. The paper and ink matched the exact era of each image, which left one question no one wanted to say out loud. Who, or what, was Thomas Gray? The break came from an unlikely source. Margaret Kane, a retired librarian, heard about the case and recognized the name. She remembered seeing it in an old ledger at the Briar Hollow Historical Society. According to the record, a Thomas Gray had been part of a land dispute in 1892. The notes described him as a drifter, someone who appeared out of nowhere and spoke of events yet to come. Historians called it folklore. Margaret swore the handwriting matched Thomas's modern signature. That's when the whispers began. Immortal. The sheriff scoffed at the idea, until another witness came forward. A truck driver passing through town claimed he'd picked up a woman hitchhiking on the night of the murder. Her description matched Abigail exactly. She carried an old leather satchel. Inside, the driver glimpsed a pair of men's gloves. When he asked, she said, "They belonged to someone who owed me his life," and failed to pay. She stepped out near the state line and vanished into the snow. It could have ended there, another unsolved case collecting dust. But it didn't. 2 months later, a hiker in Montana found a cabin deep in the woods. Inside was a man chopping wood. He looked exactly like Thomas Gray. When the hiker asked his name, the man smiled and said, "Call me Elias." On the table behind him sat a watch, the same one Thomas had been missing the night he died. The hiker left quickly, but when he returned with authorities, the cabin was gone. No footprints in the snow. No trace anyone had ever been there. That was the last confirmed sighting. Officially, Thomas Gray's death remains unsolved. Unofficially, the people of Briar Hollow still glance over their shoulders on winter nights, because they don't know if Thomas was a victim or a killer who just found a new name. And Abigail Cross? Some swear she's still out there, collecting debts the rest of us don't understand. Maybe one day, she'll come to collect from you. You've been listening to Dead Air, a not true crime production. See you next time.